Hey y'all, welcome to the Comic Book Podcast. I am here with author, comic book writer, so many things, Bobby Nash. Bobby, it is great to have you here again, and we're just going to kind of sit back and just have a free for all discussion about a bunch of stuff. So
Mhm.
we met a while back and we began to get to talking, and I had told you that I had written by the way, no longer in circulation, Zorro comic, Zorro Kills, when I was like, hey, Zorro is in the public domain. I read it over here, I
Mhm.
read it over there, I read it all this other place. Pretty well everybody that's read it has said to me, not a ton of people, but man, I like that and all that. But here comes the deal, and you even read it and you had some nice things to say. But then you said, I'm surprised that they let you do some of those things. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about, Bobby? And it's like, well, it's trademarked, and lo and behold, Zorro is trademarked. Now, you
The original stories from way back when, the original short stories are in the public domain. They can be reprinted, but you can't do new stuff
yeah. Yeah.
because of the trademarks. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of things are in the air or whatever, and I'm really not in a big hurry, and I just want to go ahead and say that right now. I've been talking to some people about writing a Zorro novel. They've talked to me, because that's what I did is I've written prose and all that. So I mean that may come about and be a thing. I don't want to like announce things before they happen. I've not
Hmm.
started writing on such thing yet because I have so many other things going on. I've just written 4 issues of a comic called Hellfire, which I've got an artist that's working on that. So we'll see what happens. There's a comic that I wrote called Whitechapel. That's a Sherlock Holmes Jack the Ripper thing. That was to help an artist, and he's taking a little bit of time, but he had some complications, a lot of power outages and whatnot in Barbados, which Barbados still sounds cool even if you're having power outages. Uh, yeah, I like the beach, but if I lived there, maybe I would want to go to the mountains. I live in East Tennessee. I'm in the mountains. Um, Oh man, what else? Got a crowdfunding thing going on right now with Propaganda Comics #1, which somebody asked me about because it says the capitalist #3. Propaganda Comics, it's almost Mad Magazine-esque, and basically, I have the liberty to do what I take a notion in it, and if it was some really big thing that totally blew up, I would make a bunch of them. Otherwise, it's going to be a standalone. But I will say that regardless of if people get behind this or not, it's already paid for, it's already happening. I will just wind up eating that, but it would help me a lot and it would help me to do other things. So, I mean, I'll take every dime that's being got, and more stuff's going to come out. I don't need to sit on any of that. I want to produce. So, right on. And certainly people would go ahead and get the rewards and whatnot. It's on Kickstarter, Propaganda Comics #1. So that's what I have going on with me there. And then I've begun the 6th novel in the God Walks the Dark Hills series, which really stresses me out because it's the last novel in that series. Have you ever done that? Have you done a series and then you have to end it and you don't want it to suck?
Yeah. Yeah. I have series stuff. I don't have. I haven't. I have had to end a few where I knew going in there was going to be a finite number of books. Yeah, and it's you want to stick the landing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it kind of
Yeah.
gets in your head sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm kind of playing it by ear. I really don't. I know a few things that I thought, hey, this and that might happen. Um, but God Walks the Dark Hills, again, it has warning labels for a reason. It is like extreme horror. I had somebody say, and if Audrey's watching, she's talked about Clive Barker a lot. Somebody actually that read like another one of my books that's a really extreme horror. They said, I thought that I knew what extreme horror was. I thought that Clive Barker was extreme horror. He's not. This is extreme horror. And there's other people that write extreme horror, which, by the way, I hold my own with them. I don't esteem myself like above. It's like Jack Ketchum level. If I had to name somebody famous, it's like as bad, and by there's super like bad. I've not seen a Serbian film, but that would be extreme horror. Movies like that,
Mhm.
Martyrs, The Human Centipede, on and on. That you just know by the title. those extreme horrors like that graphic and all that, and typically graphically violent, you know, rape scenes, cannibalism, dismemberment, you know, really graphic killing, you know, religious abuse, physical abuse, psychological, it's all in there. You know, it's got that kind of thing going on.
Mhm.
All that sort of thing. So yeah, talk to me about Zorro. So you've wrote 2 books of it. You've read my book. You've seen
Yeah.
and read God knows how much Zorro stuff. It's still making money today. It's still
Hmm.
a thriving thing today. Go ahead, say what you want to say.
Well, I grew up, obviously familiar with Zorro growing up from movies and TV. Um, so I was a big fan. So when the opportunity to come to write a short story uh came along to do a Zorro short story for the anthology, it was like that was a no-brainer to say yes to. Um, I was also a big fan of the Alex Toth Zorro strips that were collected in book form. And I bought those again later in book form, and I was really a huge fan of those. Fantastic comic creator. Um, so yeah, so it was fun. It was a lot of fun to play with and to reacquaint myself. That was a lot of times when I take on these licensed properties, it's an excuse to go back and reacquaint myself, reread some of the stuff I haven't read in years. So I went and read some of the original Zorros again, and yeah, just got in the head space of the character and got to know the character, and came up with a story, wrote it. They liked it. I was happy. Um, the book came out. I got paid. That was a nice bonus. Um, and then the amazing thing is they came back and says, "Hey, you want to do another one?"
That's
So
awesome.
I wrote one for the anthology that'll be out this summer. Called the one last year was called Zorro's Exploits. The one that's coming out this year is called Zorro Swordplay and Romance.
Yeah.
And the Bold Venture Press, who's the publisher, has done the cover reveal. So the cover's out there if you want to see what it looks like. And so yeah, so I wrote a story with Zorro fighting pirates. So
That's very cool. Yeah,
it was fun. Yeah.
so my comic was more like Zorro's body count.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you
I mean,
you
people die in Zorro things. Yeah, I mean, but
yeah,
yeah.
that's what I was
It,
gonna get with you at. So obviously I called it Zorro Kills, which, you know, again, he's slashing one of the dudes across the face, which that happens in it. The scene looks a little bit different. That's supposed to be the guy that he castrates in the street and leaves to maybe bleed out, maybe not. Now let's just say it wasn't trademarked and everything. I was gonna have the guy alive because then people would say, "Are you really the man that has no balls?" You know, and just have that follow him. But yeah, they were. I wanted people evil enough for Zorro to kill, and of course, I was going off of the Frank Miller. That Zorro is essentially Batman. He's a proto Batman. You know, with nodes of Punisher in mind because he's killing people, and that's what Punisher does. Despite the new one that basically everybody hated, and it drove it into the ground, and has people speaking all manner of evil and smart. You know what? People liked Frank Castle. They liked the fact that his wife and children were killed, and you know that he was a military guy. I mean that's his trope. That's what he was. You know, if you don't like that, then you don't like the Punisher and whatever. But he shoots people that are bad. They're generally like mobsters that kill a lot of people. But I wanted to have horrible people in there. So in Zorro, in your experience, how many horrible people does he kill? You said it does happen.
well, I mean, yeah, people die. I mean, you're sword fighting. It can happen. Uh, but Zorro is not a bloodthirsty character.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't
Um,
want him killing somebody for jaywalking either, and that was a lot of
yeah,
with the villains. It's like they have to be bad enough that it's he goes all Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's too dangerous to keep alive. Or was that Anakin? It was one of them in that Star Wars. You know what I mean, though?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, I mean, Zorro is very much like regular Batman. It's like killing is not his goal.
Mhm.
I mean, which is part of what makes them the hero is that, you know, it would be easy to just kill the bad guy. But then, I'm no better than the bad guy. So they try to find ways to do things without out and out murdering people.
And Red Hood does that in Batman, and Court of Owls does
Yeah.
that in Batman. And I actually had a conversation with somebody, and I said, Gotham would be a lot safer, but what it would actually do, if you look at how real life works, like the Taliban, the United States created the Taliban when they did all this stuff to combat the Soviet Union. So what you do is you just create another villain, that you've weaponized, that you've trained. So I mean, if the Court of Owls had that much power, that they've killed the Joker and they've killed the Riddler and all that, then it's just going to be a bigger thing. And then who's going to keep them in check? So
But I mean, also too, I don't know. When comics started, they were very much kid, they were aimed at children. They are obviously not just aimed at children now. But there
DC
is
Black Label. Do you know about DC Black
well,
Label?
yeah, but that's new.
Well, no,
That's
yeah,
new.
yeah, but I mean that's like we want this to be the hardest rated R, nudity,
Sure,
swearing, F this and F that,
sure.
and what.
And,
But
and,
so
and,
they do have that, yeah.
and that's fine. But you also you do things like that so you can have the stuff for the adults, but you still have to make stuff. You're still selling stuff
Yeah.
to people of all ages.
Oh yeah, it's a branding.
So you have to, as a creator going in and doing these things, I have to know what kind of audience they're trying to reach. And in most instances, certainly with most of these characters, they're looking to reach as wide an audience as possible.
Oh yeah.
There's not just a Black Label Batman. There is a regular version Batman.
There's a
too.
Lego Batman.
Yeah, there are Batmans for all ages.
Yeah,
there are Spider-Mans for all. So so and a lot of that, when it comes to dealing with these characters that I don't own them,
oh yeah,
they're not mine. People working for Marvel and DC, they don't own those. So there is also the going into it, you have to know what you can and can't do. And there are a lot of rules that come with writing a licensed or company owned character.
yeah.
When I did the Green Hornet, there was a Bible. It was probably, if it wasn't just an e-file, it would have probably been that thick of do's and don'ts and what you can do, what you can't do, why you can't do it, why this happened. So there's a lot. The companies and the people that own these characters, their job is to protect those characters.
What era does the Green Hornet live in exactly, or does it move around?
Well, it depends. It depends on which one you're doing. Originally it was 30s, 40s.
Okay.
When they did the radio show.
But he was
the
in
one
Batman
we worked
66, right?
The one we worked on was the TV version, which was set in the 60s.
Okay.
So, but each of those is technically, there's slightly different licenses because there are different versions.
Yes.
There is the 60s Green Hornet TV show, the radio show, which I think those are the same license. But then there's the comic book versions, which are different. The characters are different. There's a female Kato, for example, and some of them that's a different license. There's so, and the same thing with Zorro. You go do Zorro. There's the books, the original stories that were written. Then there is the Disney show from the 60s. Then there's the various different movies. All had different, things that make them their own license. Obviously the Antonio Banderas movies still cast a pretty wide shadow. There's also the one that just came out on Amazon Prime. Disney Plus
loved it.
Yeah.
Have you watched it yet?
I'm not quite finished yet. I've started it, but I'm not done yet.
All right. So I wanna go into this. I think that the choreography is great. Now, initially when I was going into it, I was kind of saying, this is kind of like Xena or Hercules. It's actually a bit heavier than that. Now, I don't mean in like a crazy way, but I mean it's more violent than that, but not so much that it's gonna really be up there in an R rating. Even though I think that it probably earned some kind of PG-13 or something. But
Sure.
it's something that there's pretty much like no language in the series at all, except that one dude like slides in an F-bomb, which really makes it pop. And he's the psycho guy. What is his what I'm trying to
And
think
you
what
can, and you,
Samael, that's his
yeah,
name.
and you
He's the
can,
bad guy.
yeah, and you can do one F-bomb and still be PG-13.
Yeah,
You do
yeah.
two, then it go,
Yeah,
but
but it's not gratuitous
right.
at all. The show isn't, and he's just like a sick character, which hopefully will be back for another season. We
Mhm.
we have all reason to think. I don't. So let me just say this because this doesn't really mess with the main plot of it at all. But at the very end of the show, it goes along with the old movies and it shows Zorro in New York and they've got a really bad like gangster character that doesn't tell you what's going on with the main line of the story at all. Of course, Zorro's not going to get killed in it. But
Although the
oh,
opening episode, there is a Zorro who dies like 10 minutes into it.
well, yeah, that is true. Yeah, well, if a Zorro dies, then another Zorro takes up the mantle. But yeah, um, but they
Mhm.
they have him in New York. So in like the old movies, that was really what even made him more Batman-esque, even though it technically made Batman
Mhm.
more Zorro-esque because Zorro came first.
Well, and a lot
Frank
of,
Miller's the one that connected that, by the way. That was Frank Miller that
oh no,
had Batman.
it was connected
Was
way before
was
Frank
it?
Miller.
Because I heard that Frank
Yes.
Miller was attributed to that. Have at it. Go
No,
for
no,
it.
no.
Call me out.
No. The whole thing about him coming out of them coming out of the Zorro movie is predates Frank Miller by quite a bit.
Okay. All
So
right.
yeah.
Because I've heard people claim that, but then again, these are the same people that say that Zorro is public domain.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's not.
Right.
On that note, and I mean, I thought it was really weird. I came out with this thing and everything. Um, Everybody didn't see it that way though. There's a notable person, and I know that people avoid like saying people's names that are controversial or whatever. I don't care to. His name's John Delaraz, and I'm not going to go into a big spill about him and his politics and what have you. But he said Zorro is trademarked, but I don't need that trademark, and he's putting it on some kind of uh fan. It's not Patreon because he gets
Mhm.
kicked off of a lot of stuff. He,
So
he's
he's
in it.
doing fan
Go ahead.
fiction.
Yeah, I mean that's what it would wind up being. It's just like if I
Yeah.
went ahead and put mine out, it's not licensed. You
Right.
can't make money off
Don't
of
make
it.
money. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't make money off of it and say I'm
Yeah.
accruing money because of this thing. But yeah, he said that it was going to be returned to Capistrano and that it was going to be written in prose.
Mhm. Well,
Just
people do fan fiction all the time. I mean, but the thing is, you have to realize if you're doing fan, and most companies don't care
yeah.
if
Well,
you do fan
Star
fiction.
Trek, people that did that, and that,
I write the occasional Star Trek fan film.
mhm,
I do it for fun. I do it
yes,
for fun and for the experience.
hmm
I have never made a dime
yes,
doing it, but I never, but I went in knowing
hmm
I'm not making any money off this.
hmm
It's something I do when I have the moment for fun. And again, part of it's experience, practicing that script writing skills. But knowing knowing that you go into it not expecting to make money, that's fan film. You don't, or fan, people write short stories or things all the time, put them for free on the internet
yeah,
and people can read them and nobody cares.
yeah.
That's fandom,
Oh, they've got that with the X-Men and everything. Now,
for sure.
very few places have let you turn around and make money off of stuff, and I know that
Yeah, no places will let you make money off of it.
the Grateful Dead is one of those exceptions where you could print out their shirts and all that.
Mhm.
You couldn't like rip off their music, I don't believe, but you could like print out merch that said the Grateful Dead. Because quite honestly, if you were walking around with a band shirt of my band on, that's free advertising right there. You're not ripping off my songs. You're not stealing my MP3s. So they were cool with that. What was Lucas arts stuff with Star Wars? Was it that you could use elements from that, but you couldn't call it Star Wars? Like you could, like Spaceballs, like you can have a lightsaber and all that, but you're not
That's a
saying that.
parody.
Yes,
Parody becomes a little different thing. Parody is a different law. You can parody something and you're okay, but it has to fall within parody. That's like what Weird Al does.
yes,
that's parody, so
E-
that's
even
slightly
though
different.
there were some issues with that, I remember Coolio was inflamed over the Amish Paradise, which I
Mhm.
personally thought was a great song.
Which is really weird because Weird Al is one of the few people that does parody that goes and asks them, "Is it
Yeah,
okay if I parody your
I
song
know he does.
first?"
Yeah.
And then they say yes, and so that's because he's had people tell him, "No, please
Yeah.
don't do that," and him not do it.
Madonna
Um,
actually requested for him to do
right,
like a Surgeon. He
right,
said that was the only person that requested, and he's like, well, it's Madonna, so yeah.
yeah. So yeah, but so that's parody. That's a whole different beast than the fan fiction stuff. But it's just I think a lot of us do that when we start. We want to write, or create comics, and you do what you know, and that kind of gets you into it. I started out writing and drawing Spider-Man comics that nobody ever saw but me. But so yeah, so I mean, it's a good way to get into it and do what you do. But you just have to realize that there's no money in that. You're doing that for fun and
By
the
the
experience.
By the
So,
way, just again on Zorro, bringing you back to that full circle here. So I have two of there's three right now out, but there will be four total. It's a limited series of the Zorro Man of the Dead. I liked the first one well enough that I said I'm going to go ahead and do these other ones. Again, that person that I mentioned has actually like targeted the dude making it. It's like, well, I want to see for myself because I heard him bashing like an interview that was going on, and I'm like, he's taking things totally out of context and all that. It's a really solid book. You see that he's on a motorcycle. It is
mhm.
modern day. So Zorro was who Zorro is back in the day, and he fought the oppressed people and all that. It begins. Here's the third book, by the way. There's multiple covers and all on that, but it begins with the daddy of the main character playing Zorro at kind of like a pageant thing, and the people in the town, they're all into it. And some mobster comes up and he kills him, and then it fast forwards years later. And so this young man that he's grown by this time. He was a child when he saw his dad killed in front of him. He literally has the sword of Zorro, and he's kind of adopted the mantle, and he's trying to be like Zorro. There's some people that get some Z's cut into them and all that, and so that's how the first book starts essentially. There's some really solid characters in it. I believe it was clean. There's not a bunch of profanity or anything in it. One of the things that John criticized, when you just say everything is woke garbage, supposedly there's a character in it that happens to be a lesbian. There's no sexualized scenes or anything going on. That's just part of who she is, and she's the sister of that guy, and she's working for these gangsters. You see several things going on in her life where she kind of has like a conflicted life, but something's either good writing or it's not, and it's good writing. And
Hmm.
that's what should matter in a story, the
Yeah.
story.
I haven't read it yet. I figure I'll wait till it's out in trade and read it. I haven't read it yet, but but yeah, but see, and that's also the thing too, when you do these licensed things, again, there's a lot of do's and don'ts,
Yeah,
You can't have, I don't know what all is in that particular license that they have, but usually it's remember the audience, no F bombs, no
yeah,
sex, no, nothing gratuitous. Those are usually rules that come with it because the people that own the character, their job is to protect the character, and they don't want
yeah,
to put out anything official
yeah,
that harms their character. Not to say that and it's different for every character. It's different for who owns every character. Obviously, you mentioned the Frank Miller Batman stuff.
yeah,
That was an instance of DC and Warner Brothers allowing that to happen.
yeah,
Had they have had Frank pitched it and they were like, no, we don't want to do an adult Batman, that book would not have happened.
yeah,
So it has to come from the people that own it when you make those drastic type of changes. But you know what? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The Marvel they did that with the Logan movie. They allowed it to be an R-rated Wolverine movie, and it did really well.
yeah.
But it had to be something where you know, like the filmmakers didn't just say, "I'm going to do,"
Oh
I'm
yeah,
going to do an R-rated. You can't just do that because I get people come to me all the time at cons or on social media are like, "Oh, I hate the new team writing character X. Man, if
Yeah.
I wrote character X, this would happen." You know, and I'm thinking, yeah, but as a writer, you don't control all of that.
Mhm.
Everything you do with a company-owned character has to be approved by the company.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Right or
people,
wrong, it's their
right,
baby. You know,
right, because people,
Disney has Star Wars right now,
yeah,
and if you don't like it, don't watch it.
right,
Whatever. But they can do whatever they want with
they can do
Star
whatever
Wars
they
because
want.
they've got Star Wars.
Right, because it's theirs. They own
Yes.
it. That would be like that would be like somebody coming to me and going, "Hey, I wrote a snow book." It's like, well, you know, you can write a snow fan fiction, but I own snow. Nobody writes snow with, officially without, my approval and my say so because it's my character. Um,
When does Snow exist? What's Snow's
it's a
story?
modern day thing.
Okay.
It's a crime thriller.
Okay.
But that was just one I pulled out of the top of my head. But any character, if you don't own it, you know, there's you can do fan stuff and not make any money, and people go, oh, that's cool. But yeah, if and it's anybody, if even the guys at my level, I'm not certainly a big corporation, but if somebody decided to take one of my characters that I created and I own and start writing stories with it without my permission, we would have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. And
That
if you said okay or whatever the terms were, I mean that's it's your baby, you know.
right,
Absolutely.
right. So there,
I'd
yeah,
actually had a conversation back when with somebody about just some trivial like book thing, and I had asked if I could, and didn't happen by the way, but I'd asked if I could put their thing on a shirt because I am a fan. I don't know if you or anybody listening knows who Rude Dog and the Dweebs are. Do you know who Rude Dog is? Yeah, it was like a skater type thing. Super nice person. The Rat Fink family that owns Rat Fink kind of would have to see the stuff. I'm a fan of Rat Fink too. I like fast, loud. I like rat rods. My wife learned what
hmm
rat rods were because of me. But yeah, I'm all about that. I love old school. You love old school too. Um, I was going to talk to you a little bit about Wesley Dodds, the Sandman. So the Sandman was an old character, and this is like a revival for it. So there are 6 issues of this, and that's it. It's a limited run series. There's actually a book that you can get with a lot of the older comics. And according to Casually Comics, I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. It's got a lot of darker stories or whatever. He wears a gas mask. He uses like a World War I gas mask. He uses a gas gun. He's in 1940s New York. He's a billionaire. That's his thing. But I went ahead. I got the first one. I gave a review on it. I liked it. I got the second one. I've went ahead. They have multiple covers. I have all of the others right now too that I will be reviewing soon because I like it that much. I like the
hmm
dynamic of the character. I like the time period. Um,
have you read any of the original Sandmans from?
I've, I've not, but it makes me want to, and so
Mhm.
I'm gonna wind up doing that. He does talk about the tarantula, who was a villain that he fought. I know that much. What happens in this series? And this is a little bit of a spoiler. We got about 9 more minutes. Um, at the end of the first book, his house is on fire. In the second book, he's asking questions, trying to find out the who done it. Somebody took his book of gases, way more harmful gases than his sleepy gas that he uses. So essentially, it's like a Sandman versus the Sandman. The villain's name will be the Fog that he fights in it. But so that's the storyline that of what these 6 books are about. Had you read any of the Sandman? Do you know anything about his character?
I've read some. I've read a few over the years. It's been a while. I haven't read the new one. But yeah, I've read some. I know they show up in things like the Justice Society as well. But
Mhm.
they were like golden age characters.
Yeah.
Sandman, and he had a sidekick named Sandy, and
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it was. Yeah, they were fun. Very much a product of their time.
Now,
Um,
what all have you done that's during that period? And I don't have anything that's really noir stuff
yeah.
because
Well,
that's where that falls in. You've got the Domino.
yeah, I do Domino Lady stuff, both in comics and prose. I do a lot of pulp characters. I've written the Spider, the Avenger. The Black Bat, Secret Agent X. Rick Ruby is the one Sean Taylor and I created that's set during that era. Lance Starr, which is also a new character in that 30s, 40s era. So we've done, I've done a lot of pulp stuff that takes place in the 30s and 40s, and you kind of write to that type of story, that pulpy type of story. So yeah, they're a lot of fun. They're usually very action heavy, more plot driven sometimes than character driven. It's
Would you
more like,
would you consider the Elephant Man, the movie? Would you
mhm.
consider that with Anthony Hopkins and all? Would you consider that to be noir or no? Because I love it, but
Mm,
is
I don't think I would call it noir, but
I know
yeah,
that Sunset Boulevard is, and somebody
that
recommended
would,
that to
yeah.
me and said I know you would love it. And because I mean, I think to myself, how many movies do I like that are noir? Is Vertigo noir?
I would say yes, but
Okay.
yeah, it depends on who you ask too, because there are people. I mean, there is a definition for noir, so there's a lot of people that call things noir that other people go, that's not noir. But that's anything. We could have this same argument over, oh, that's pulp, that's not pulp.
Well, no, here
This,
there's I was looking up noir horror. I was like, I wonder how much of that there is. And there's a movie that sounds like I might like it. I think it's Night of the Hunter is the name of it. Mitchum's in it. He's pretending to be a
oh yeah,
preacher.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really good. He's a murderer. He's pretending to be a preacher. He wants 10 grand. That was a lot more money than it is
It's
now.
still a lot of money today.
Well, yeah.
But yeah,
I
it's
wouldn't sneeze at it, but
yeah, it's certainly more than I have in my bank account. So
so wrap us up, man. What all have you got going on? I talked about the books and all that
um,
I have going. The Hell Fire comic, by the way, is in the '60s. So I'm kind of jumping from the Old West Civil War stuff. I've got one
mm,
1930s book, which is Jody Walls Rides Again. It was Josie Wells, but copyright. And then I'm jumping over to the '60s. What about you? What you got going?
I just finished a full cast audio drama script that the producers liked, and they're going to go into production later this year. It is a murder mystery set on a spaceship. So that was kind of fun. I've got, there's the third Sheriff Myers mystery is in edits now. Deadly Deals, which is the sequel to Deadly Games, is also in edits now. So those will be out sometime this year.
That's awesome.
Um, there's numerous comics and short stories and things for anthologies and whatnot that are in various stages of production. So there's more Domino Lady coming. I'm doing a lot of Domino Lady stuff this year. So I'm keeping busy, and yeah, yeah, there's a lot.
How does Domino Lady deal with the bad guy? I mean, does she just like catch them in the act? Does she shoot them? Does she take their
she
picture? What does she
she
do?
can she has shot people in the past. She is not a killer. It
So
is
she'll shoot them
usually
in the knee.
usually shooting them as a last resort.
Okay.
Um, I because I keep it kind of the way they did in her stories in the 30s.
Okay.
She used knockout gas a lot, or knockout juice. She would get the goods on them and then see them go to prison. She's only really shot. She's only killed a couple of people. It's uncommon. Like I wrote one story, the very first story I wrote with her. That she's framed for murder for killing a guy, and the cops are like, oh my god, she's killed somebody, because it was uncommon for her to kill them. She will shoot them if she has to, but it's killing was not her forte. She didn't.
What is she packing? Is it a Derringer? What is it?
She carries a 22 because it's something that can pack in the cloak. Something
Yeah.
simple. There are
I hear
times
that
when
if you shoot somebody's tooth out with the 22, you win the fight.
ah, I there are some stories where she has bigger guns, but for the most
Okay.
part, it's the 22. Yeah,
Yeah.
because 22 is easily concealable.
Okay.
She can, have it with her. She has the syringes of the knockout stuff, and little pellets that are like in a garter belt, so she can sneak those into places. But yeah, she would quite often uh, go in and like get a guy to like a loan that she needed to get, and they'd be all snugly together, and she would like in the neck, and he's out, and he wakes up and thinks he's had the greatest night of his life, and she has gone on and stolen or gotten the goods or whatever she needed to do. And yeah, and then
That's awesome.
her cover is intact. So
That's excellent.
yeah, she's fun to write. She is a lot of fun to write.
Tell people where they can find you and find your stuff. We don't need you to
Yeah.
wander off without saying that.
Oh, BobbyNash.com is my website. There's links to everything else there. I'm on all the social medias. All the links are there under the links tab. So yeah.
Are you going to be popping up at anything anytime recently, like live?
Like events. I have events scheduled throughout April. This weekend, me and Ben Meeks and Sarah Sover and James Palmer are doing signing on Saturday at the Crazy Book Lady in Ackworth, Georgia. The Atlanta Comic Con is in April. Indie author or local, is it indie bookstore day? There's an indie author bookstore thing at the end of the month, the 27th, and I'll be doing something for that as well. That's going to be in several places. I'm going to be at the Crazy Book Lady, but there are several indie. It's like it's almost like a bookstore crawl. You can just go to a bunch of different bookstores, and then of course, first weekend in May is Free Comic Book Day. I'm going to be at Infinite Realities in Tucker, Georgia that day. So there's a lot of that stuff.
I'm going to be at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival on May the 4th in Townsend, Tennessee. I have a comic book with Mickey Mouse and Felix the Cat and all them, and Bigfoot, and kid friendly, by the way. So I'm not like destroying Mickey Mouse like everybody else that's touching it. Well, and that's kind of what you said with properties. Kids like Mickey Mouse. I liked Mickey Mouse as a kid. You probably liked Mickey Mouse as a kid. It's like, well, why don't dump on Mickey Mouse? Have him act like Mickey Mouse.
Right, yeah, those guys that did the Winnie the Pooh, horror movie.
Oh, they're having a sequel. They made enough money to do a sequel. He's got a flaming chainsaw. It's crazy. Hey, we got less than a minute, man. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for all that you do. And
this was fun.
I guess we'll be talking again later. Thanks a bunch.
All right. Have a good one. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.